Back. Welcome to Dinosaur Omelet Land. We are the Dinosaur Omelet. Who are we? Who are we? What's your name, man?
My name is Angela.
I'm Christopher. Hi, guys. Welcome. This is the Dinosaur Omelet. We're a small homesteading channel. We're actually a homestead. We raise quail and chickens and ducks and all kinds of fun creatures. And the primary objective of these lives is education and information.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been doing this for a few years.
Mm-hmm.
So we've done a lot of lives. There's a lot of live educational videos in the live section if you check that out. Plenty of subjects. This is long format and many of them are academic. So if you go into the live section here, there are academic presentations of more complex subjects. This one tonight about first-time chicken ownership is a little more lax. It's not too complex. It's not too sciencey. It's easy to grasp, but it's good info. Hey, Taco, what's going on, man? Thanks for stopping in. We're talking about first-time chicken owner mistakes because during this egg crisis, like every spring, you do have new chicken owners. But because eggs are getting to the unapproachable level in cost, people who've never had chickens before are going to be start raising them. So we're going to be talking about the mistakes that they should probably try to avoid.
Yeah, and are avoidable for sure.
Are avoidable. Cool. So a little bit about us, first-time people. Down in the description of these live videos, most all these videos, I put a ton of good quality free information. I'm a pro education information dude, so we do a lot of that. If you're interested in quail, so we raise quail,
Jumbo quail.
jumbo Craturnix quail, which are a fantastic alternative to chickens. A lot of people cannot have chickens because of restrictions in the area, or they just don't have space and they're expensive. So
or they don't want to wait 6 months if they're starting with chicks to get eggs. Quail, the jumbo quail will be ready between 6 and 8 weeks of age.
Here's some quail eggs for show and tell. Okay, they're smaller than chicken eggs. Yes, they're 3 to 1. 3 of these is about equivalent to 1 large chicken egg. The reason I'm telling you this, if you're interested in quail and you want to learn about them, go down in the description. There's this free quail raising checklist that will basically tell you everything you need to know in about 20 or 25 questions on how to raise these birds for eggs and meat. That's just an aside, but that's a little bit about us if you don't know. So we do raise those. We've been doing this for 5 years.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of people have been doing quite proficiently. I like them. I prefer them over the chickens.
Yeah.
Anything else interesting you want to add?
About the quail?
About the quail or your silkies? Angela raises silkies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Show quality, just top quality pets. You raise them as pets.
I specifically focus on
Temperament.
Pets. And I keep to the standard of perfection for the breed, but my focus is in pets because a lot of families who have kids or just people who want a special pet for themselves, whether they're a single person or spoiling themselves, a lot of people like getting the silkies because they're so docile, they're so calm and fluffy and soft and easy to care for. They're not high egg layers, but they're really good pets. So as far as chickens go.
Nice. Ooh, Taco said that the HOA, damn HOAs,
Oh.
says I can't have chickens, but maybe in the future I'll be able to. I'm wanting...
A few quail, hen for eggs.
We're looking at our phone, that's why we're squished up.
Yeah. All of this info about poultry is good to know.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff we're talking about the chicken, does transfer over to the quail. There's a lot of similarities in raising chicken, and they're poultry or egg layers. So a lot of the stuff we're going to discuss, and I'll mention all the things pertaining to quail that are married to the same kind of consideration with chickens. Where's that paper?
Right behind you. Yeah.
I'm going to start in just a second. I usually give these lives a few minutes. If you're new here, guys, again, this is a very, our lives are education focused.
Mm-hmm.
We hope to give you usable information and not just, to show, like a lot of, I'm not talking down about other channels, but they're not always focused on strictly academic topic, which is fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, different.
I like that, and that's why we do that. Like, I like doing research, learning stuff, and sharing information. So, and every once in a while, we do have more of like free form stuff where it's open Q&A. So if you guys have questions, whether it's during this live or occurring after, put them in the question section. Is that what they call it?
The comments?
Comments. The comments. Put it in the comments. and we'll get your questions. Colors 487. What up? How you doing there, Colors? Thanks for stopping in. If you have a question about anything, let us know. Otherwise, we are discussing tonight the chicken owner's biggest regrets. And the reason we're discussing chicken owner's biggest regrets, like I said, is because there's a lot of, first timers?
Yep, people who are new to chickens, who are buying chickens and wanting to get set up and started or planning to. So good things to consider before or as you're pursuing that process.
Yep, you're looking at the store and saying, I don't want to spend $7 on eggs, so I'm going to spend $3,000 on chickens.
But it is good to raise your own food because you know it's good for you. You know it's healthy.
Yeah. And I'm going to give that speech at the end of this, the whole lifestyle versus, practical output and function. Although chickens can be quite practical once you're up and running. It's like an engine building thing.
Yeah,
takes a lot to get started with
if you get set up properly, then it runs well.
Same with quail. Although quail are much, much cheaper because they don't need a lot of space and you're raising them in a hutch. But once you get things set up and running properly, they're productive and you're generating food. Okay, cool. So chicken owner's biggest regrets. I've been doing outlines for these for a long time. I used to try to wing it, but my school teachers were right. So we're going to be discussing about, 9, 10, maybe 11 different important points about chickens before you dive into them, or maybe you have them now. And these are things to consider. A lot of the people who watch this channel, you guys who are live, you have lots of experience, and this might be just reiterating. But like I said, drop questions in, even tough ones. I like tough questions. Okay? Yeah. All right. Oh, the first one. We're going to talk about underestimating feed costs. So feed costs. I think what's happening, would you like to speak on this? Or shall I? Because I've been talking a lot.
You can go ahead.
All right, you discuss number 2.
Okay.
All right, so with feed costs, you're going to be hold on, please, thank you. Considering how many chickens you need, or how many chickens you're planning for, like the number of animals you have are going to require X amount of food. Going into this, people aren't really budgeting that, and this is kind of the boring thing, opening up with a boring subject, but we're not budgeting accordingly or doing the numbers and understanding those numbers. So the costs kind of jump up on us real quick, especially when we're going to the big tractor store or one of the retail outlets for feed. It starts to add up. And then when you start caring about your chickens and you start spending big money on expensive quality feed, it starts costing more than you may have expected, especially when the number of chickens gets into, what do they call chicken math?
Chicken math is you don't know how many chickens you have anymore.
Yeah, you keep adding more chickens and then the chicken math adds up. But they do require certain nutrients, particularly amino acids, and you're probably going to be getting food. Even with your free-range birds, you're going to be buying food. So those costs can start to mount up if you're not prepared for it and understand their needs. In the description of this video, I do believe I have a conversion chart which tells you how many pounds of feed equal 1 pound of animal weight, like how much feed they need. And I'm actually working on a video for per egg cost, like how much it actually breaks down per egg cost. But take a look at that. So yeah, the feed can start to accumulate cost-wise if you're not prepped for it and you don't know how many animals you're starting out with. We're also pretty big planners here, so we always plan properly. And if you're just buying chickens at random and you're not really sure how many you're going to have, it's kind of hard to plan. If you're budgeting, and a lot of people right now are budgeting stuff, like what's a feed budget and where are you sourcing it? Think about the mills, the feed mills, where you get this stuff a lot cheaper, like 50% or less at a more wholesale location. For more feed. Well. You're getting more volume of feed, fresher, at a lower cost, because it's not in the pretty picture bag with a chicken posing on it. And it comes in an ugly sack. Okay, so that's kind of boring as a first thing.
Well, but another thing to think about too is that sometimes people, mostly maybe for the convenience of it, but they will give their chickens a full feeder all day long, every day, allowing the chickens to just eat as much as they want. And really, if you want to save on cost, they don't need to eat that much. And actually, they may be at risk for becoming overweight, which can affect their health negatively. So if you want to consider giving them serving sizes for a day for how much they would need per the type of chicken breed you have each day, then that would save on money because chickens tend to be kind of like pigs. They just kind of overeat.
Speaking of feed, we just did a how to ferment feed video, one of our regular videos, which saves money. If you're looking to save money. A lot of the people we work with care for their chickens like pets, like family members. So they take the extra time out, some of them do, to ferment the feed, which volumizes it, fills it with water, makes the nutrients more available to the chicken, adds more vitamin to the food because of the bacteria that are fermenting the feed.
It makes them healthier, stronger, boosts their immune system.
Yeah, I don't want to go to a big spiel about
double
that.
the amount of feed that you start with, and you can use any feed. You can ferment any feed.
But if you're trying to save cost, and that does volumize the food, and it's very good for the birds.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yes, it's very good, just like it is for people.
So all of Angela's nice super silkies eat nothing but that fermented whole grain feed that we make.
And our layer breeds and our ducks as well.
They all eat good food. They eat better than us.
So they're very healthy birds. But I give them a serving size.
Oh,
otherwise, they would overeat.
Yeah, for Mr. Taco down there, because we're talking about quail too as well. Definitely try to source feeds from feed mills if you're going to raise quail, especially if you're raising a bunch of them, like 20, 30 quail if you're doing a lot, depending on how many you're raising. If you're raising a smaller number, maybe not, but feed waste with them. You want to watch out for feed waste. Get an appropriate feeder if you do quail, so you don't waste.
Yeah.
Because when they eat, they
flick their beaks.
They flick.
And they're just ever searching for that better crumb of food that's even better than the ones that they're looking at, even though they might all be the same. So they just naturally flick through and can easily scoot it over the lip of the feeder. So yeah.
Ma'am, number 2?
So number 2 would be not securing the coop properly. So
horror stories.
Some people get away with not encountering predators, not having predators come into their chicken area for a long time, and then they do, and then all of their birds get slaughtered. So it's important to know there are wild animals in the wild, including in the suburban areas, city areas. They're everywhere. Just because you don't necessarily see them does not mean they're not there. Depending on the area is where you'll have different types of predators. So, but most commonly and spread out everywhere would be the raccoons, the rats, the snakes, the fox, dogs, neighbors' dogs getting loose, the mink.
Yeah, the dog problem's an issue because that makes everybody enemies.
Yeah, that's really tough.
Yes.
Yeah, so when setting up your coop and your run, the space where the chickens or the birds will be, make sure to reinforce, make sure it's not a floppy type of structure. It's sturdy, strong, using hardware cloth instead of using chicken wire is ideal because the integrity of the wire is much higher. Chicken wire can actually be bitten through by like raccoons and different types of predators.
An important thing too for you new chicken people, if you're starting to raise these, you're looking for a coop, especially if you're buying a used one online, disinfect it.
Yeah.
Okay, make sure you disinfect it first. But check around. Look for any structural problems, weak points, holes, like little, just places maybe where it's not tightly sealed, like little tiny holes, like
the size of a quarter.
The old rat volume. Yeah, a rat will squeeze into a small quarter-size hole. So if you're buying a hutch or building a coop or something, just give it a good look over because they will get in there. The rats will find a way in, so you want to make sure the thing is secured.
And then also, just imagine like a tiny human wandering around your coop trying to test it. That's what a raccoon is like. They have hands and they have problem-solving skills. So they will mess with the latches, make sure your latches are, quality. They can figure out how to open things.
And they're pretty strong.
And they can lift like nest box covers. They can lift things and grab. So, yeah.
And that's going to be I mean, that's a huge issue, you guys. When you get chickens, if you're new, again, this is for new people, but if you've had chickens, maybe you already know this. I think you should, but if you're new to chickens and you're buying chicks and you're like, oh, we're gonna have, it's gonna take months before they start raising, from when they hatch.
Laying.
Like, yeah, is that what he said?
You said raising.
Oh,
You're gonna raise them for months.
you're gonna raise them for months before they start actually laying eggs, and you don't want to have a chicken either just starting to lay eggs or you've had it for a month after all this work to get gobbled up by a raccoon or a rat.
Yeah, it's an investment.
And you spend each day with them.
Yeah.
You know, this is not factory farm people who are doing these homestead projects. These are families or people who are very intimately involved with their animals. They get to know them, they know their personalities, and then one morning they come out and their head's missing. That's not good.
Yeah.
So make sure
Very true.
the coop is secured so we don't have any missing chicken heads. That is a very sad thing. We don't like this.
Right.
All right. Anything else about coop sealing, ma'am?
No, I mean, can you think of anything?
No. We just wanted to go over the whole predator issue.
And it is very, so some people will think like, oh, they go into their coop at night and they're sleeping, but they don't think to close the coop up permanently, like for the night. And so definitely, even if you have a run and your run is attached to the coop, I would recommend closing the coop door where the chickens are sleeping, because if something does break into the run, you have the door. But I've had people not think to even close the door, and then a predator still gets in and goes right into the coop.
Taco said, I love your sense of humor. I don't have a sense of humor.
Yes, you do.
Just talking normal. I don't know, like, the way I view the world, isn't it like I'll say something, you think I'm joking, but I'm just kind of mental. And
I realize that you're not
the way I
joking
see
a lot of the times, but you think in a creative way.
I see the world kind of, I was raised on Pee-wee's Playhouse.
He would make a wonderful person to be a reality TV person, just like following him around with a camera, because he's just very funny. Just everything.
Don't put me on the spot. I have no jokes coming up in a second. All right, let's go. I'm going to go. We're transitioning now.
Yeah.
Segue. So we talked about securing coop. New people, very important. Do not buy. This is number 3. Do not buy a cheap quality garbage junk internet coop.
Yeah.
It will fall apart after a year.
Yeah.
Okay. They look really nice. They look like miniature people houses. Do your due diligence and find if you're going to be buying one of those kind of construct yourself prefab chicken boxes.
And the walls are really flimsy, thin.
Yeah. Make sure you find out what that construction is, because it was cheaper and it looks nice, but then 6 months down the road it's kind of wobbly, and
just from the like the rain and the temperature, humidity and stuff will start to eat away at the glue.
Yeah, I will say, and I'm not advising this, but I'm a handy kind of person, so I will say if you find a cheap rickety one and it's possible to reinforce it, that's different. Maybe you could reinforce something if you want to finagle that. Is that a word we still use?
I think so.
I don't know. It's an old people word. I still use it. So you could rig it up. But don't buy cheap coops. I will always love to say build one if you can. And if you can't, try. Mm-hmm. If you have the tools and you're curious about it, just, have fun. If you have a little bit of experience but you don't think you can, just try. I built all of our coops, but I never use plans. I don't like using plans. But I built it in my head, like while I'm in bed, kind of like envisioning how it would go together. And then I imagined putting it together. That's just how I did that. And it came out right. I did all my measurements in my head. This is a simple structure. It's not like I'm building an actual house, just a box, basically. And then the way I was thinking of this is like you're basically doing a paper project. You're cutting stuff to length and you're putting it together. And that's really all it was. So I'm just encouraging you guys, if you are thinking about trying to build your own coop, do a practice one. Build like a small something. See how it turns out. Just get used to a tool and see how it works out for you. You'll save a lot of money. You'll learn a skill. And that actually transfers to many things on your homestead and or farm where those skills are going to be applicable.
And if you're really kind of unsure about how the building process works, you could even make a craft house out of like popsicle sticks and stuff to figure out, problem solve and figure things out to get yourself familiar.
And it's actually a good
As a
family.
model, I'm saying, as a model.
Yeah, it's a good activity for the kids. I mean, not using the big power tools, but to participate in designing and, learning about that kind of thing, the construction and building. It's a good family activity.
Yeah.
And it gets them involved from beginning to end. So, I mean, I like families, especially you young families. I encourage you guys. All right, so do not buy cheap quality coops because they do fall apart pretty quickly.
Yeah.
That's why they're called cheap quality.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why they were cheap in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's the old you get what you pay for. All right. Ooh, number 4. You're good with this.
Number 4, choosing the wrong breed for their needs. So yeah, you want to consider, just like dogs.
Wait a
and
minute.
cats.
There's a difference in breeds.
Yep, just like dogs and
I
cats.
have to play. I'm stupid guy, so I have to play stupid guy. I'm thinking of questions that might come up, especially if you're new. There is a difference in the breeds. Could you please explain to me? I'm dumb. I don't know what the hell what's going on.
So there are breeds designed for different purposes, just like how there's different types of dogs, like working dogs and hounds and sighted dogs that hunt with their sight. And anyway, different things. So the chickens, the same thing. They are not all created equal in the egg production sense. There are different breeds that are well known for laying high production, a lot of eggs, like 250 to 300 eggs.
Such as what breeds?
A year per hen. And the several examples would be the Black Australorp, they're known for being very friendly, good with children, family, and they're really good with hunting for foods on their own, scavenging. And then the leghorn.
Yeah, leghorn.
The leghorn is it's the white ones with the floppy comb.
That's the most chicken-looking chicken ever.
Yes. I think there's an Isla Brown, I think is what it's called. It's actually a breed that is two breeds together make this bird, so you can't breed this one on your own and produce more of the same, but they're high producers.
Rhode Islands, we have
the
those
Rhode Islands
too.
as well, Rhode Island Red.
Oh, what about there's ornamental eggs, the Easter eggers? Do you know what rate they are? How many a year they're laying?
No, but they're a lot of the other breeds are around like the 200, maybe 250 a year per hen. But the type of eggs you're going to get too will range. There's also a class of chicken called bantams. They're mini chickens. There's a whole bunch of different ones, and they're all mini. Silkies are one of them. They're miniature chickens. So
Angela raises the bantam silkies, the little tiny chickens.
Yeah, so
they're not too little tiny though.
They're half the size of at least half the size of a
regular
standard chicken. Yeah. They just look bigger because they're fluffy. But if they're anyway. So silkies and other bantam breeds, they will lay much smaller eggs, and their production won't be as high. Now, it's important to not just be like, oh, well, this breed or these different breeds are known for laying a lot of eggs. Let's just get like one of those or whatever. But it's important to look into the temperament and the energy and, what your family dynamic is like. Will you have children interacting with them? Will it just be you? Because they have, like the leghorns, they are high energy. And they like to roost, and they'll fly up into trees if they're able to. If they get loose, they'll fly up into the trees, and you might have to think about having a covered run, which is a good idea anyway, to protect them from predators, or you might have to clip the wings. But they are high producers in eggs. If you want a breed that your kids can interact with, and you won't necessarily have to be concerned about them getting pecked, Black Australoper is a good one. And then there are other breeds that are bigger. They're bigger breeds, and and
they're falling off.
They're really friendly and great with families. But their production is a little lower. They lay a lot of eggs, but the production is a little lower because it takes more energy to maintain that bigger sized body. So there's a lot of different breeds. They look different, pretty or plain. Depends what you like.
But in conclusion, do your research. Figure out what breed is going to best suit you. I think I'm not trying to take away from make this totally like a transaction. A lot of people like, oh, this one looks pretty, like the Barred Rocks, I guess.
Yeah, barred rocks
You
is
know,
another good breed.
like pretty, maybe you want a pretty chicken, but understand what their output is, what their duty does, like their life, their egg laying cycle, and etc.
And a lot of people like to either get a mix of breeds because they're pretty and you just want to have that range of variety in how they look and their colors and their feathers. Or people like to get different breeds so they can have different colored eggs because it's really pretty. It looks like a rainbow of eggs. But you do need to make sure to understand their temperaments because not all breeds will necessarily meld well together because some may be more dominant, some may be very docile and then get picked on, and some may just be mellow and in the middle and be really good to go either way.
Right on. Cool. Know your breeds. Get the appropriate breed. That's important because people oftentimes wind up replacing their whole flock after like a year. I've seen that a bunch.
With
They get a chicken they don't want the breed, and they're like, oh, I should have got this instead, and it's kind of like buyer's remorse. You go in impulse buying chickens, which, by the way, it's a good time to impulse buy chickens, like they're coming back to the tractor shop.
Yeah, apparently Tractor Supplies are stocking them.
I mean, that's what people do. Like, oh, I got to get a pair of socks. Oh, chickens. Okay. All right, so choosing the wrong breed is not good. So we want to do the appropriate amount of understanding and education. Again, that's why we like education here. All right. Number 5, overcrowding. Overcrowding their chickens. Yes, that is an issue. That can be problematic. We don't want that happening for several reasons. One, your coop is going to get soiled and filthy and can spread disease pretty quick when it gets overcrowded. So if you want to raise 20 chickens, don't get a tiny box. You know, get an appropriate size coop. They will also get territorial and they get pecky.
Yeah, they'll get agitated with each other. Yeah, and the girls on the lower end of the totem pole of the hierarchy, they'll get bullied and picked on. Yeah, so just because chickens in general, as far as animals go, aren't very big and like to maybe roost, you know, and can kind of fill in spaces, doesn't mean they don't need space. Like Christopher said, the biggest thing is they're going to keep going to the bathroom in that box. So you want to make sure they're not oversoiling it and getting on each other's nerves.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about that later, but yeah, that overcrowding, they do get pecky. I guess they get like anxiety, they get problems, like you'll see them wigging out, and they soil the place up really a lot faster than you want to be cleaning out a chicken coop every day. Okay, so when you're looking at coops, besides getting a cheap one, don't get a cheap one, or if you're building one, figure out like, hey, I want.
And what he means by cheap, he means quality. Get a good quality. We're not talking about price.
Yeah.
Price, you can get a free one, and it's good quality.
Price is arbitrary, yeah. So poorly constructed chicken coop coupled with a bunch of chickens in there, it's all problem. So understand the size you need before you get it because you know how many chickens you're probably going to be housing. Right? And that chicken math thing becomes a problem because then everybody's buying second backup chicken houses, which is common.
Back to selecting breed and going into the topic of coops. Chicks are tiny, and people are like, oh, what does it hurt? I'll just get 5 more. Like, I have 10 in my box, let me get 5 more. They grow up, and you have to make sure you have the proper space, you know, and ratio or a plan to rehome, you know, if you decide you want to downsize.
Rehome? That's just a loaded word. That's abandoning your chicken who trusts you and knew you from hatch, and then we're getting rid of you. That's awful. Anyway, we don't like that.
Yeah, make a plan, though.
Try to keep them. All right. Number 6 on the things to avoid as a new chicken owner. That's important.
Thinking chickens are set it and forget it pets.
What do you mean, man?
They aren't self-sustaining. So... they do need daily tending to. Yeah, they're a living creature.
Yeah, I was going to say the short version is they require work and effort. It's not just you go out and pick up eggs and fill up a feed dish once in a while.
Yeah.
So they're more involved. Yeah, so chickens are not set it and forget it pets. So what is the thing? Oh, new chicken people. Do you like going on vacation? Right?
Yeah, somebody's got to take care of them.
Somebody's got to take care of them. One thing I would recommend is maybe perhaps cameras and automatic doors. So if you're out and like, oh, we're going to go get dinner, we're going somewhere, we don't have to be home because I can click the door shut from my phone. Yes, it's the future. And I know when they're all in because I'm watching them on the little Amazon camera I set up outside for the chickens. So you can set things up. You can build infrastructure around the animals. You can do automatic feeders, automatic waterers, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, and sometimes people will be like, well, I have a couple of hens that just, they keep milling about outdoors. They won't go to sleep. They won't go to bed. And I've already tried putting a light in the coop to lure them into the light, and they're still stubborn. And I just recommend getting like one of those, like a feeder that feeds treats, or even like any kind of feeder, like even a fish feeder, something that will drop some food in the coop, even if it makes, especially if it makes noise. Then they'll know the treats are coming, and they'll go in the coop, and you'll know they'll be in there.
Yeah, so yeah, getting them in the coop. And also, new chicken people, again, keeping the coop clean. It doesn't need to be sterile like you're doing surgery or anything. That's bad too. There shouldn't be surgical sterility in your chicken house because they need to adapt a hardiness to the pathogens. But it shouldn't be soiled because they get respiratory issues and then they can get other infections. So you need to keep aware of the cleanliness of the joint. And you don't want to be eating eggs coming out of a pile of chicken leavings.
Right. And you'll want to monitor the birds as well so that you can notice if there are any health issues that pop up. You'll know the difference between what they look like healthy and if something looks different. So.
Yes, that's actually a very good point because it can spread a disease. And if you have a sick animal and you're not noticing it because you don't really interact with them that much, you can have a whole sick flock. That's not good.
Yeah.
All right.
So they are not, leave them, set them up and leave them. You do have to tend to them. Did you want to talk about this one?
Sure. So number 7, neglecting the biosecurity of your animals, because we were just kind of talking about that. What is biosecurity? So there are protocols that are suggested to be followed with biosecurity. An example I'll discuss is people always ask, hey, can I come to where your animals are? We'll have to decline that kind offer. And the reason is the transfer of organisms from one place to another, especially one chicken farm guy wants to go visit other chicken farm people, which is usually the case. They could very easily carry a disease over. They don't, unintentionally, obviously.
Just walking your shoes, the tread of your shoes with clinging debris.
Yeah, but particularly for you new chicken people, when you get new chickens, you're all excited and you want to throw them in with everybody else. Don't do that. Don't do that.
No, don't.
You got to separate the little dudes for a couple weeks, really. So they become hardy to that environment. If they have any illnesses, you'll see those signs. Because you could, what do they call it? They're asymptomatic at the time. They're not showing symptoms of illness.
Yeah, they could be carrying something that's not a threat to their system at all. But moving from one place to another is very stressful. So whatever they might be carrying that will go away on its own may suddenly flare because the immune system of the bird is low from the stress. So then it could succumb to whatever it could potentially be carrying.
So back in their old house where they came from, if they weren't moved, they'd deal with it and they would get over it. Now that they're moved and they're stressed out, they
just like humans.
Yeah,
get sick.
They don't feel good. They're like she said, the immune system is slightly suppressed enough for that organism to become a problem, infectious, to show signs, and that's actually probably good because then you can see it before it spreads because your animal's in quarantine and you can treat it.
Yeah, so then the potential thing is if you don't quarantine them, if it is sick with something that didn't show symptoms, your other birds would be exposed. Or let's say the bird you just got is healthy, but it's stressed. So it's still healthy, but suppressed immune system with that stress, and you shove it in with the new birds. Your birds are probably hardy to whatever the environment they live in is and whatever organisms that are there. And your new healthy bird under stress, put into a stressful situations with new flock mates that don't want them there. Whatever they have might affect the new bird, but doesn't affect, your existing flock.
Think of it like when the kids go to school and they come back with all their diseases. This is similar to when you go visit somebody's chicken farm with your shoes, and you come back to your chicken farm with dirt from their place on your shoes, and now you have a contagion that got transferred. That sounds a little bit wacky. People are like, oh, what are you talking about? I go everywhere all the time, nothing. And yeah, like usually you're safe, but it's just a roll of the dice because this happens all the time. People do transfer. It's like the bad luck chicken lottery. It's very probable. It's probable. It's within the realm of probability. To the point where you may want to take safeguards against it by not wearing the same shoes or disinfecting your shoes after you go from one place to another and washing your hands. It's just simple biosecurity stuff. And again, you're trying not to be spending $10 a dozen on eggs. You just spent a fortune on raising chickens. Be best not to kill them all. Probably a good idea. Keep them alive. Yes. And, and if you feel kind of weird about doing all that, don't tell anybody. Just do it in secret.
Yeah.
But these are things to take into consideration, and they are serious issues. Like if you talk to people working in that industry, they'll talk to you for hours about that because what they do. All right.
So, and not preparing for winter care. So sometimes people will just continue their routine, from spring, summer, fall, and don't think that the change in season will create, any change in routine. But it absolutely does if you're in an area where the seasons do change significant enough. Now, the water is something that will freeze in obviously, cold temperatures. And some people may opt into dealing with that, frozen water. But it becomes a pain, quite quickly if you have to either dump a bucket of ice out or be chiseling ice. Things break easily with the cold temperatures. It's great to have like a heated element of some sort, either in the water or underneath the water container, so that the water is not frozen, doesn't freeze. And also, it's good to have a backup one in case that one fails.
Yeah.
And then also just adding some reinforcements to your coop, a wind shield for those really cold, winds that come in the wintertime, just to kind of give your chickens a buffer away from a protection from the elements of the wind. Make sure they have a covered area to get out of the snow and such. But if it does snow, that's another thing. Chickens really are not a big fan of standing in the snow. So likely, if your area is not covered and the snow will, fill up the space that they live in, then you'll have to clean it up to some degree, shovel it out to some degree.
Yeah.
And it's also a good idea to put some straw or bedding of some sort down so that their feet are not directly, in that, so that they can have a break from standing on the cold, just to prevent frostbite.
Yeah, they're not like, a dog will make a dog path in the snow. They don't care.
Yeah.
But chickens totally different. We have to dig them out. The other thing, too, in the winter, they're going to be spending more time in the coop. Just because it gets dark earlier. True. And there's not as much daylight. So it gets filthier a lot quicker than it does in the spring or summer.
Yeah.
Luckily, while we're doing this, we're coming out of winter. Is something you really should plan for, so you're not going wacky when it comes into cold season. Like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with the cold water?
Yeah.
I was going to mention molting too as a winter issue.
Yeah, so the chickens, they'll molt like at the young adult age, from juvenile to like just before.
What's molting?
Oh, molting is losing feathers
chicken people.
and growing out brand new feathers, because their feathers will get, worn out.
Scroungy is the technical medical term.
They'll get worn out. They'll get dull looking. They'll just get scruffy, and it's their way of replacing their old feathers with new ones, and they'll look really, really pretty when they're done. Now they will be growing new feathers throughout their juvenile stage of growth. And you'll see feathers here and there, but they won't look like bald. Once they get to 18 months, this is pretty standard for the breeds. Once they get to that 18 months, they're gonna have their first heavy molt, and that's when they look. They tend to look hideous. They're just really bald.
Yeah, I've heard lots of people online. They don't know what's going on.
Oh, they think they're sick or something, or picked on.
So it's like a normal biological process. It's a renewing. they're going to be eating more because they're growing new feathers. Going to need protein to replace.
It takes a lot of energy.
Yeah, it's a lot of energy. It's intensive. Now, what we're going to talk about is diminishing it.
Yeah. So, the reason why he mentioned that as we're talking about winter care is because for some reason there's always somebody in the flock who their time is like when it's the bitterest, coldest time of the year, and they look like they're like no feathers. So, it's good to increase their feed, increase their protein, like Christopher mentioned, to give them more energy source to grow their feathers back a little faster.
The protein, the feathers are made of protein. It's keratin, like people hair.
And if they don't get enough protein, they may pick their feathers because, like you just said, their feathers, it has like a protein in it. So it's kind of like a loop that's not helpful. You want to make sure they get increased protein. Their egg production will drop because of that energy they're putting toward growing those new feathers. It's coming from somewhere, so it's going to come from that production in eggs. Another thing with winter is that egg production will go down. Some breeds will still continue to lay throughout the winter without any intervention on your part. But most breeds tend to need like a supplemental lighting if you want them to continue laying throughout the winter.
Yeah, let me explain that. So there's a hormone in chicken, kicks in when light...
Poultry,
in poultry, quail, chicken, all these birds, kicks into their body when the light starts diminishing. It's a bioadaptive mechanism telling the chicken or the poultry bird, like, hey, do not have babies because we're not getting much sunlight, which means we're not getting a lot of growth of plants, which means we're not getting a lot of life. Can't feed them. They're going to die, so don't waste the energy having babies.
It's a biological design.
Don't lay eggs. But alas, we can trick them. We will trick them. We'll convince their body to keep laying eggs. And no, it's not harmful for them. No, it's not stressing their body. It's not doing anything. People think, oh, well, I want to give them time off. And you don't need to do that because they lay year-round. I always say, like any equatorial regions where you have extended sunlight all the time. They're laying.
And the production will likely not be as high. Well, it likely will not be as high as it is in the warm months anyway, even with supplemental lighting. So they are getting a bit of a break. But if they're molting, they're not going to be laying eggs. So once they finish, then they'll pick that up. You're going to want to increase their feed intake. They're going to need more feed because now they are using more energy to stay warm.
In the cold months.
So they will need more feed. If they do not have enough feed, then again, just like molting, they're going to take that energy from somewhere and it's going to come from egg production.
Oh, quick little thing too, because I want to move on from this one about winter. Do I need a light in my coop? That's always a question. Not a light, a heater. Do I need a heater in my coop? Why or why not?
No, you don't need a heater because the chickens and the ducks and the quail.
Can I answer this? They have feathers.
They're fully equipped for the temperatures, the harsh temperatures, as long as they have protection from the elements, and the elements, include sunlight. They need to be able to be in the shade, but the rain, the snow, the winds, all that stuff, they need proper ventilation. But with the heat...
Go ahead.
Well, no.
I was going to say feathers to make it make sense, so it becomes more, so it's something intuitive. I always say, like, if the feathers didn't work, then there wouldn't be any little Tweety birds in the middle of winter, because they'd all freeze to death. The feathers are very, very exquisitely designed. They're really amazing. I should do a whole video on feather structure. It captures. It's like a layer. So the feather's not keeping them warm. It's just like our clothes don't keep us warm. What's keeping us warm is the body heat, but the clothes insulates. It keeps the cold air from getting to our body, so there's pocket of warm air keeps us warm. I'll say them with the chicken with their feathers, but their feathers are even better structured.
If you pick up a kitten and you're outside and it's cold, your instinct is to take that kitten and stuff it in your coat and get it against you because it's warm there. Well, it's the same thing with the chickens and the birds. Is they'll fluff their feathers out. Sometimes they look like they're like hunched and like kind of miserable looking, but they're not. They're fluffing their feathers out. and it's creating that pocket of pocket of space between the skin and the underneath of the feathers for that warm air to circulate.
Yeah, the body is what makes the heat, not the feathers. The feathers keep the heat from getting finding equilibrium with the cold air.
And I just
then cooling their skin and blood at the surface.
I just learned this week about ostriches. They have these fluffy, frilly feathers. They are not like, the stiff type feathers you're familiar with. They're very fluffy. And the reason why is because they live in very hot, deserty type temperatures, the environments they're in. So the type of feather they have allows the wind to ruffle the feathers all around. The breeze will ruffle them, and that'll remove the heat that the feathers are holding. So the ruffling is the wind is taking the heat out of that loose feather.
This is one of those. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it keeps them cooler. So that's the opposite of what we're talking about with birds keeping themselves warm. Their feathers are staying,
That's a big bird. Birds shouldn't be that big. I got a thumbs down to the ostrich for being too big. Oh, they can harm you.
They sure can. That's for sure. But yeah, they do not need heaters in the coop. All you have to do is just kind of, if you're in a really harsh winter area, is just add some windbreaks so that if they're outside, they can get in, they can be out of the wind. You can add extra bedding to the coop just to kind of make it a little bit more snug against any kind of drafts.
Okay. I think that was good. That was good.
Yeah.
Good information coming out of winter, but it's still stuff to know. All right. Number 9. Not having a plan for your old laying hens. So they stop or decrease laying eggs after what? 2 years?
Yeah, they're going to definitely start decreasing.
And that goes by pretty quick. So now you have a bunch of elderly hens who just eat and take up space. Now you can keep them as pets, but you want to have a plan. What are you doing with these guys? Are you keeping them? Or shall they become dinner themselves? Yes, this is true. This is the harsh life of a chicken on a farm or homestead. They sometimes work, and then what's their reward? Simply to be eaten later as a dinner. That does happen, so that is an option. Yeah. But so the question is, what are we doing with the old laying hens?
And it is something to consider depending on your setup and yourself, how much care you want to be putting toward taking care of these animals, because if you have 6 old ones not laying eggs, but they're eating and they're going to the bathroom, plus 6 healthy young ones, you got 12 birds. That's feed costs, that's time in tending to the maintenance of the coop, and just watching out for their health and everything.
That's something you have to discuss. So we deal with a lot of people who want to have meat programs, but they don't have the psychological apparatus to commit the bird to meatification, which is understandable. So
there are lots of people who will adopt chickens too, because they're like pet people. And I've seen many people who, somebody gave they took chickens from people at work or whatever because they didn't lay any eggs anymore, so they knew.
I'm trying to turn our house into an animal rescue, but I'm not allowed. She doesn't want us to wind up on that hoarder show. I don't know if they still do that. I'm gonna be like the animal hoarder. I like to keep clean, but I can imagine I'd be a pig with a bunch of animals.
Yeah, I don't know.
I like the creatures. All right. So, not having a plan for old laying hens, you should really consider that, because they do become pretty useless in that field after a pretty short amount of time. Time flies by.
It does.
So 2 years, and then you want to replace them if you're doing an egg program. You're like, and you hear that all the time, I got to replace my flock. So now you're not only competing this year with new chicken people because of the egg issue, because I guarantee you it's going to be like that Corona stuff. Everybody started raising chickens. They're doing that this year. People who haven't had them for years, they're going to go out and they're going to get 10 new chickens. Guarantee it. There was a huge uptick in chicken ownership during 2020 when everybody needed toilet paper and eggs and chickens. So, not having a plan for old hens. I don't think we'll talk about that because we already discussed that. I'll mention it briefly. Understand, number 10 was going to be failing to keep rodents at bay. When you have chickens or quail or any of these animals, you have food spillage. Food spillage invites pests. Pests become predators. So you want to diminish the amount of spillage.
And they don't only become predator. Well, so the thing is, people will see like a mouse or a rat, and they'll be like, "Well, I don't really know how to take care of that because maybe I have a dog and a cat, and I don't want to put poison out, so I'm just gonna let it go and hope it goes away." So if you see one, there's always more.
There's a hotel down the road filled to the brim with rats.
And the thing is, if you fortify your chicken area or clean up the feed, and there's no more feed available for them to eat, they're going to turn and see that you have a warm house that you live in. And rats are very good at getting into tiny spaces.
Yeah.
They might move in. So it's very important to take care of this.
I was very confused with our rat situation when we first saw rats. I thought it would be like Secret of Nim, and I'd go out and they'd have like a little village and we'd be friends. But no, they were just killing animals and eating stuff that was horrible.
Yeah, no, that we took care of that.
We had to get rid of all the little rats.
Make sure it doesn't become a problem is the best thing. By keeping everything tidy, no food laying around or easy to get into. Store it properly.
Oh, and if you guys are not old people, watch The Secret of Nim. What a great rat movie.
It is a good movie.
I should watch that tonight. All right. So I wasn't going to mention that, but I'm going to mention it. The last thing, now this is an important one. This was going to be my number 10. This is my number 11.
Okay.
Bum, bum, bum. Be very careful of buying used secondhand chickens off of the internet from Craigslist, etc. Do your due diligence. Get from a quality breeder. Mm-hmm. Sometimes people, there's all kinds of horror stories. Not just the scammers. I'm like, is this the world we live in? You're so desperate for drug money, you're scamming people for chickens? Get off my back. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you get scammed for chickens. People are selling chickens and stealing money, but that's not even the issue. The issue is you're going to go buy these birds and they may already be past their egg laying age, and now you have like 5 useless chickens not laying eggs,
or they could be
and
ill,
now they're just a problem.
And maybe you don't know, maybe you're not familiar with what illnesses look like, how they show themselves. So the chicken could have some sort of sickness that you don't know, or often can be overlooked would be lice, on the bird, and maybe there's just a little bit, and the person selling maybe innocently, doesn't even know that they're there. So, and that can spread pretty quickly. So you have to treat them.
I got to give you a lice fact because nobody likes lice. Chicken lice will not infect your human hair.
Yeah, I mean, your chickens, it might, if one has it, then the other ones will get it.
They're species specific. Anyway, yeah, so you can have disease, parasites, not laying anymore, or, my favorite, he's the gentlest rooster you'll ever meet.
So sweet.
And then he's ripping off your eyes and lips. Yeah. So the gentlest.
Or goes after the husband, hates the husband, and the wife, loves the wife. So just like hates all men or hates all women or whatever. So definitely the
very temperamental, yes. So,
but even hens can be, temperamental as well. So you want to make sure it's a good one. But this also goes to markets, animal markets as well, because you can find a lot of great animals at markets. But look, you like understand what you're looking for,
or bring somebody who does.
Yes,
take a friend who knows animals.
They're prone to respiratory illnesses, and it might be the beginning stages, and you don't necessarily see them, like it might not look so obvious the symptoms yet.
And we're getting into a time, this is a more serious note, we're getting into a time where there's probably going to be more, I'm not saying there definitely is, but there's going to be more scrutiny due to the highly pathogenic avian influenza, which seems to be a problem and becoming worse. According to official outlets. I will not speak on it, though. It's not my wheelhouse. But it is an issue that may weasel its way into the domestic poultry owner. And as far as like restriction goes and more scrutiny, particularly in, if you have HOAs or neighborhoods or something like this, there might be concern.
But there's all sorts of ways to get your chickens. You can look into breeders. Specifically that have certain breeds that you want, and they're reputable, that they're trustworthy, and there's plenty of reviews about them. There's also, if you want a hatchery type bird, hatchery stock is, it's not, the quality of the bird isn't as good as far as representing what the bird is supposed to look like. The standard
quantity over quality.
Yeah.
They're raising a
So
lot.
let's say you get a Rhode Island red chicken from a breeder. The size is going to look the proper size per that breed standard. All the expectations that you have for the breed you'll get. The size, how many eggs it's going to lay, the temperament, the behavior. If you get it from a hatchery, which is a bigger operation, they're trying to sell as many as they can. You're likely going to end up with a bird that's smaller, might have defects.
Not all the time.
Yeah, not all the time. It might have temperamental issues. You might get really great birds.
Yeah.
But it's not going to represent the breed to the standard of perfection.
They're not applying the same scrutiny in the output of the hatches like the chicks. Whereas like a breeder has to.
It's their passion too.
Yeah.
But so if you're new to chickens and you just want pets and you're not too particular on how they look and all that stuff, totally great using the hatcheries as well. Yeah. And you can order online. But
it's all a learning process. If it's your first time, it's your first time. You're going to make mistakes and you're going to learn from them, and then you're going to go from there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, getting your own chickens, if you're doing it this spring for the first time, awesome. There's a ton of resources online. We have some stuff here. There's a lot of education available. And I'd hate to say it, but I'm going to have to encourage people to start using my best friend, the AI. There's a lot of good information that you can generate if you know how to properly prompt the AIs for your learning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? Okay. That was a fair amount of information.
Yeah,
I think that was good.
A lot more than I thought.
I think that was good information for a new chicken person.
Yeah.
So if you're a new chicken person, leave a comment. Let us know. Give us a question about your birds or what you're trying to do. Know what your goals are. You don't ever mention that, like, your goals, but I always go over that. Mm-hmm. Anything you like to close with? Because my mouth feels like I was eating a sock.
Yeah, just plan and do your research, like Christopher said. Understand what you're doing, what you want to accomplish, and pursue it. Like, it's a great opportunity to have chickens. You're going to be able to know what's going on with the eggs, the meat, the chickens, the health, the quality of their life. You're going to eat, good eggs and with good nutrients and all that stuff, not peppered with antibiotics or neglect. But yeah, it's a fun experience. Chickens are a really good starter to go into the
You
whole
also get chicken crap on your own eggs.
Yes.
On your home eggs. You don't get that at the grocery store.
Yeah, but what an honor. But yeah.
It's fun. Oh, Taco said thank you. Hey man, thanks for coming in. Appreciate you being here again. I hope this was at least fun, if not informative. Maybe it was informative. And like I said, most of the stuff is applicable to quail. The feed, however, just a side note, you can give quail feed and just pile it up, and they're not going to overeat. And that's actually what's recommended, to keep that food there.
Yeah.
But all that information is in that quail PDF down in the description of this video down in the bottom.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to go have a big giant glass of water, and now I think I want to watch Secret of Nim. It's the best.
Yeah, thank you guys for watching. If you're new to our channel, feel free to subscribe and leave a comment what you think about, getting chickens, the eggs, and everything going on with the whole
if
thing.
you know a new chicken person, share out this or one of our other videos in that realm, because there's a lot of information we try to give out for new people. And if they're bored, like this kind of yapping, I listen to, I don't watch the videos online so much as I like to listen to educational stuff. And I'll turn the video on, and I'll just listen to whoever's blabbering blabber, so I can learn something. And you don't learn everything, but you pick up stuff, and then, brain accumulates after a while, and you start learning a lot just from passively listening to whatever your education is, whatever your interest is.
Yeah.
So, cool. Thanks for stopping in.
Have a wonderful day, evening, night, whatever time it is when you're watching
week, year, and everything else. Yeah, guys, we will see you on the next one. Thank you so much for coming in, Taco. Thanks for your comments and stuff, man. We'll see you.
See ya.
Bye. I shall.